Hello, welcome to this edition of Momentum. I'm your host, Robert Green, and I'm happy today to be joined by Amy Barton. Ms. Barton is the program coordinator of our Shackouls Technical Communication Program. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Okay, so I've got to ask a first question.
All right.
How did someone with English degrees and a background in English end up working in the College of Engineering?
Well, Robert, I've gotten that question a few times over my career, and I'll tell you that when I was in school and pursuing my English degrees, I was never all that creative. It was always more fun to me to think of analyzing sentences and analyzing writing, and I'm fascinated with the idea of being able to take a thought and express it in countless different ways. And we have so much control over what our audience, our reader, understands and focuses on. It could be grammar, but it could also be just different grammatically correct versions of the same idea. And you maybe use a dash. And just that choice to use that dash instead of a colon or a comma, that sends a different message to the reader. It creates a different type of emphasis. And so that was always something fascinating to me. And all of our instructors in our program also have backgrounds in English, and I think we all share that passion for clear, crisp writing. And I'll also say on a personal note that my dad is still an engineer, and he graduated from MSU with a degree in industrial engineering, and he's also an excellent writer and enjoys writing. So I think that's something that I picked up on growing up.
Yeah, good. We'll come back to that in a minute, I think. But of course, the Shackouls Technical Communication Program, and Bobby and Judy Shackouls are perhaps best known for endowing the Honors College here at Mississippi State, but before that, they endowed the Technical Communications Program. What does that mean, and what do you all try to do in that program?
Well, we are so proud of the endowment of our program, and we're proud of our program. We're actually a small academic unit within the College of Engineering, and an academic writing and presenting unit. And our focus, we feel, is just as important to engineering graduates as their technical skills. We want to prepare them to be good communicators, to have confidence that when they go out into the workplace, they're going to be able to express themselves and what they know in a way that benefits them. And so we really try to help them see the value of communication, how much time they'll spend communicating in their careers, and we feel like we're an important step on their journey to those careers.
Well, you and I have talked a good bit over the years about writing, and I think we both agree that writing is probably the most important skill you can learn while you're in college, regardless of your major. What are some of the common challenges you think students are facing, particularly engineering students, when it comes to writing and communicating?
Sure. Well, I see a few things. I think two main problems that are really linked together. And this is probably true of most students now. We tend to write like we speak, and now that we're communicating on social media and there's so much shorthand, we tend to write in a very informal and imprecise way. And the other problem that I think is tied to that is that over the years, students are taught to write for minimum length requirements, word counts, how many sentences are in a paragraph, how many pages in this document. And so you've got these dual problems of imprecise, informal writing and fluffing it up because they think, oh, I'll make a decent grade if I can meet this page limit. And so you've got a lot of fluffy writing, as I like to call it, wasting the reader's time with very little technical substance. And what engineering students especially need to understand is that the magic of their professional writing is going to be in the details, in the numbers, and making those numbers meaningful to their reader. And so first we have to unlearn some of those bad habits. And I also think, as you know, often engineering students don't love writing. It's not their favorite thing to do. It may not be why they got into engineering as a career in the first place. So one of the first steps is just to show them this is valuable, and this is a style of writing that works well with your practical focus, your focus on design, your focus on an end user. We're just applying those principles to a reader. We tell them writing is design. So once we get over that hurdle of, trust me, this is going to be important, we try to make the writing much more concise, have them think more of the reader, and not waste the reader's time.
Well, you mentioned your father is an engineer, and he loves to write. I'm an engineer. I love to write. I know others who also love to write. What do you think sets apart some of those who love to write and some of those who don't?
Well, I like to tell my students that they just need to give it a chance. And it's so closely tied to their career success that's one of the first pitches that I make. But also, if you're an engineer and you're focusing on this efficient style, I think it becomes much more enjoyable. A lot of students think that they're going to have to write like Shakespeare, or they're going to have to write some literature analysis, and that may be their experience with writing. And I think the more that we can connect it to what they're doing, short pieces of writing, describe this for a third grader, describe it for a peer, describe it for a professor, and especially if the topic is something they're interested in and they see value in it, I think they can come a little bit farther in trying to understand the importance and maybe like it, maybe not, but at least see its value.
Well, Flannery O'Connor said, I think it was, I have to write so I know, I don't know what I said until I read it, or something like that. Basically getting at writing is more of a process than a product. And I think a lot of our students are focused on, here's the product, I'm not going to do anything until it's time to turn it in.
I agree, and writing is thinking made visible. I love the Flannery O'Connor quote, and I share that sentiment that we sometimes don't know how to organize our thoughts until we see them written down. And once we're able to look at them, we might be able to see gaps in our understanding, or that we don't have an organized concept of the idea. One challenge I tell the students is, if you're not sure you understand a concept, try to teach it to somebody who doesn't know anything about it. And if you find yourself getting frustrated, if you find that they're asking questions you don't know the answer to, you don't know the subject well enough. So often the communication will tell whether you understand it.
This is right up there with, you don't really understand the material until you teach it.
That's very true.
You really don't know what you think until you write it.
Exactly.
Well, you've done some work recently and presented some papers at the American Society for Engineering Education Conference on artificial intelligence. Is that something that worries you, or what are your thoughts on AI when it comes to writing?
Yes, well, you asked the right question. It worries me very much. And this all came about, really, at least in the public consciousness, in December 22 and January 23. And so right before our spring semester started, I was fearful. I was ready to have the students just put away the computers, let's get down to blue books and pencils, and let's start writing in class again. And then over time, what we realize is that's not practical, and it does the students a disservice, because in the workplace, some of their coworkers are going to know how to use generative AI programs like ChatGPT effectively. And so what we have found is, once we teach students prompt engineering, so how to develop clear, adaptive, reflective, very specific prompts, and how to experiment with their prompts, the students learn the value of incorporating it, but they can also be taught the risks, the biases that come with it, the dangers of it. And so what we found is, one, at least in fall of 2023, students are not being taught in the classroom about generative AI. They would like to be taught about it, and once they do practice prompt engineering, they're less likely to say that they'll never use it in their careers, or that they'll always use it in their careers. So they have a more nuanced view of its benefits and its drawbacks, and I think that's a positive lesson for me, and helps me get over some of that fear.
Good, yeah. So one of the things we have to do as part of our accreditation is, periodically we have a quality enhancement program. This year, the university, or this cycle, the university is working on experiential learning. Our previous one was on writing across the curriculum, which we call Maroon and Write. Well, of course, experiential learning is more than just going out and getting a job and saying, I've got it. It requires more than that, and also requires some reflection. Can you tell us a little bit about how students can better use writing as a medium for reflection on some of their experiential learning opportunities?
It's a great question. I think that sometimes when you talk to students about reflective writing, especially to engineering students, very practical students, they wonder, is there a purpose if the writing is just for me, if it's me looking inward? And I think it serves such an important purpose, because, as I said, writing is thinking. when you do reflective writing, sometimes you don't really understand what you gained from something until you write it down. And then in looking at that, you have a better understanding. Oh, well, I've taken, maybe this experience was 2 weeks or a month ago or last semester. Maybe it was a co-op experience. Maybe it was a study abroad experience. But just writing about it helps you to organize what you learned and what you gained from it and what you still want to learn. So I think it can be very helpful internally to really realize the value.
Okay. We have a couple of minutes left, so I want to ask you a little bit about what parents and K through 12 teachers can do. I know once we get them in college, there's only so much we can do. We only have them for so much time, and we have some students who come as they're really good at writing and some who aren't. So what can K through 12 teachers or parents do to their children to help them become better writers and be better prepared for college?
I think there's so many things. You know, I had the experience of teaching 9th and 10th grade English for a few years, and what I learned was that the emphasis is so often, and it has to be, on literature. There are certain books that the students need to read, and they need to be able to write about those, and poems. We want them to be exposed to literature, but I think that we need to incorporate writing into all subjects, into the science classroom, into the math classroom, fun writing assignments. If you can believe, along with me, that some writing assignments can be fun. Let's say that a teacher showed a little math trick to the classroom, to the class, and then said, okay, I want you to write up the instructions for this math trick or write up the explanation for it. So things that would be short, low stakes, and then they would start to associate writing with other subjects than just English, than just that one class. They wouldn't compartmentalize it so much.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I've found I found a lot of engineers are actually better writers than they think they are. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing the same thing?
I definitely see that, and I think they're surprised as they go through the semester and we talk about what their strengths are and where they need to improve. I think all of us, even people who will come in at the beginning of the semester and say, I'm a terrible writer, throw their hands up, we all just struggle with a couple different things. We just do them over and over again. So part of it is spotting our own patterns, and I try to help the students notice those in the classroom. But it's that efficient style. If you love design, if you love to be practical and economical with resources, treat words as resources and treat the reader as an end user who needs certain constraints to be met, but they don't need too much thrown at them.
Well, we try to avoid controversy on this show, but I just feel the need to ask this question.
Okay.
Oxford comma, for it or against it?
I am for the Oxford comma. How do you feel?
Okay, absolutely. That's the only way.
I think that in some cases, people could be confused without the comma.
I
agree. If you could dispel that confusion, then yes, Oxford comma.
Well, Amy, I want to thank you for joining us today on Momentum, and thank you for all you're doing to help improve our engineers in their technical communication skills. I want to thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Momentum.